What is going on, everyone? So today we have an unboxing from SpeedCubeShop.com, and today we're checking out something very cool. So all these cubes right here are part of the Qiyi MS collection of cubes, and believe it or not, all these puzzles are only $50. Under $50 actually. This whole set of cubes here are under $50. Not to mention the kicker here is that they're all magnetic. And I've heard some really good things about this one, so I was a little skeptical at first just because I've never really heard of any bundles so cheap before. I mean, it's 2x2, 3 5x5, plus you get a Pyraminx. So that's pretty much covering nearly the entire WCA events. But yeah, let's just go ahead and jump into these puzzles and see how they actually perform. Alright, so I decided to go ahead and get this whole collection in stickerless, but they do offer in black plastic, so you definitely have your options. Alright, so opening up this 2x2 first. All these display cases are super nice. How did they offer this whole set for 50 bucks? That's kind of insane. But yeah, so of course these are aimed at more beginning speed cubers or just anyone on a budget actually, but I've heard some really great things about them. So turning on the 2x2, whoa. How is it so good? Oh my gosh. For real, I think just out of the package, I could absolutely go to a competition with this thing. It's flowing so well. The actual feeling of it really reminds me of the Qiyi Wuxia or the Valk 2, but it's just that it feels a little bit lighter and a little more speedy. It's not really as gummy and slowed down, and it's not really feeling that bogged down to me as the Valk 2M. Yeah, the overall feeling of it, it has a slight sandiness just because it hasn't really been broken in yet, but overall it definitely feels very smooth, and it has a sort of plush, papery feeling to it. It's very enjoyable to use, and it's fast, but still very controllable, so it pretty much suits all turning styles. Wow, this is insane. Checking out corner cutting. It does 45, but I think it's just a little bit loose. It's kind of locking up a little bit. Reverse isn't too great, it's just doing that little tiny amount, but still nothing bad. Even disregarding the price, this thing is still so impressively good. Yeah, I don't want to base my judgment on this whole collection just out of consideration for the pricing or the fact that they are budget priced cubes. Just taking a look at the performance on its own, this 2x2 for starters is absolutely amazing. The magnets themselves, they definitely feel light, but even though this cube is pretty fast, I can still control it just fine. It is very stable. So wow, yeah, 2x2 is definitely really great. So yeah, if you're looking to get into the 2x2 event, or you're looking to try out your first magnetic 2x2, definitely go ahead and give the Qiyi MS one a shot. Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and go down the line, and next up, let's check out the 3x3. Alright, right off the bat, the 3x3 feels very different, whereas the 2x2 is more of a soft and smooth plush feeling cube. The 3x3 is more crispy and very loose feeling, and not really in a good way. Yeah, it just kind of has a bumpy feeling to it, more so than just the magnets themselves. It has a very bumpy tactility to it that I'm personally not really enjoying. And the cube is actually on super tight tensions, but when you're turning it, it feels very loose. Like, it's not really keeping its structure all that well. It just feels kind of unstable. So yeah, it's interesting. I'm gonna have to set this cube up and see how it gets. I mean, it's not a terrible cube, but I think just by today's standards, where we have so many budget magnetic cubes out there, things like the Moyu RS3M 2020, which is absolutely amazing, I personally don't think this can really compete with that. But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to see if it changes at all after setting up, but just out of the box, it has a very unpleasant, loose, and unstable feeling to it that I'm not really enjoying. And yeah, it is tight, but it's doing actually a decent amount of corner cutting, so I'll give it props to that. And reverse corner cutting is very effortless to do. But yeah, definitely still a very usable 3x3, and I'll just have to see if the feeling itself changes at all after breaking it in and doing a proper setup on it. All right, next up down the line, 4x4. Wow, 4x4 is not bad either. The feeling itself is actually very similar to the 3x3 in that it has that same type of crispy and crunchy feeling to it. Yeah, the outer layers are especially crispy. But overall, it's a very nice speed actually, and I can control it really well. It's definitely not very slow or bogged down. And personally, I am a little bit more critical of 4x4s just because I feel like out of the package, they do need a lot more work, whereas a 2x2 or 3x3 can be very good out of the box. But yeah, this one is surprisingly really nice. Corner cutting, it's doing around 45 degrees, and on reverse, just a little bit, but it does tend to get stuck if you go too far like that. Yeah, tensions don't seem too bad either, but yeah, we'll see if the corner cutting changes at all. I mean, overall, I really am not getting any locking. And I'm not sure if it's just for my own messy turning or whatever, but I am feeling just a few catches here and there, but it still flows relatively well. Yeah, I would absolutely name this as one of the better budget magnetic 4x4s I've tried. Compared to something like the YJ Yusu V2M or the Yushin Little Magic 4x4M, this definitely outperforms those because I feel like out of the package, it's actually usable and it can actually do a speed swap on it. But other cubes that I've tried have a lot of trouble actually keeping up with being a modern performing speed cube. So even though this puzzle is catching and locking up just a little bit, it's really nothing that a real setup can't fix. So I'm excited to see how this gets after some break-in and just a little lubrication. But on to the 5x5. It's kind of crazy how companies are going overboard with the packaging nowadays. You know, I have a love-hate relationship with it, but getting into the cube. Okay, I haven't even done that many turns yet, but first initial impressions, it really reminds me of the Qiyi Wushuang. Yeah, it totally feels like the Wushuang to me, but just a little bit faster. It has that same slightly crunchy feeling to it as the Wushuang. But of course it is magnetized, and it feels just a little bit speedier than the Wushuang did out of the package. Yeah, the magnets are noticeable, but they're definitely not overly strong. I think they're the perfect strength for me. It's still keeping the cube stable and controllable despite how fast this cube seems to be. Oh, and on the topic of magnets, I realized I forgot to talk about the 4x4 magnets, but they are relatively light. The inner layer magnets are stronger than the outer layers, which I think is a really great combination, especially for a 3x3 stage. And even though this cube is actually really, really fast, I can control it just fine. So it's not really a worry about it being overly fast, and the magnets do a great job at controlling the puzzle. Alright, so back to the 5x5 though. Even though it does feel like the Wushuang, it doesn't feel outdated. It has a very nice, crunchy, smooth feeling to it, and I can tell you right away that with lube, this thing will definitely become more buttery smooth feeling. And so corner cutting, yep, almost a piece very easily. Reverse, nothing too special. Yeah, it does just enough so that it doesn't really catch that often. I don't necessarily see anyone using this cube as their main over something like the Volk 5M or the Altron WRM, just because this cube doesn't feel that structured. It has a sort of loose feeling to it. As I'm turning it right now, I mean, it could absolutely be the tensions as part of the cause of that, but it kind of just feels unstable. Yeah, and it's just a little bit too slow in comparison, but yeah. Obviously, all of these factors can change with a setup and break-in, but just out of the box, it's not a bad cube, but not necessarily to the level of a very professional and high-end 5x5. Alright, so last one in this MS lineup, we have the Pyraminx. Yeah, honestly, going down the line, all these cubes are really, really good. They're all magnetic and they perform really well out of the box. And yeah, not to mention, it's only $50 for this whole set. I think under $50 if you get it from SpeedCubeShop, actually. And you know what? If you use code TCK, you're going to get even more discounts from your order from SpeedCubeShop. Just a little note there. But anyways, let's just go ahead and get into the turning of this Pyraminx. Oof, this thing's super, super fast. Yeah, I'm not that great at Pyraminx. I really only solve it once in a while. Yeah, the magnets and the tips are very, very light. I honestly can't really feel them. And if you're just turning it like that, it's not going to be tactile enough. It's going to be way, way too fast if you're doing solves on it. Corner cutting is pretty good, actually. Yeah, even though it's kind of tight, corner cutting is doing really well. But yeah, overall, I guess this puzzle it turns okay, but it's just very loose feeling. And even though it is so tight and it still feels so loose, I feel like this puzzle is just innately unstable and just too flexible. Yeah, especially for a beginner or even just a professional level speedcuber, this cube is not going to be stable enough to be able to use very reliably. The feeling itself actually kind of reminds me a little bit of the Moe Magnetic Pyraminx, just kind of that loose feeling that it has. But I mean, overall, it definitely performs pretty well. I can execute algorithms relatively okay, and it flows just fine. Alright, so that's going to wrap it up for this unboxing. I think honestly the only one that I was really mind blown by was the 2x2. This thing is just so good. It could honestly compete with my other potential mains like the Valk 2M or the Tengyun 2x2. It's that impressive, so I'm definitely gonna have to play around with that one more. But that's not to say that these other puzzles aren't good. They are very, very impressive too, and they're all magnetic, and not to mention this whole bundle here is only $50. And if you head over to SpeedCubeShop.com and use my discount code TCK, you can get discounts on all your orders, including this whole bundle here. But yeah, so I hope you guys did enjoy this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.